Hey guys, it's me, ShadowEye916 again. This is part 7 of Innocence Lure Jeff the Killer love story, and hopefully you guys been loving it so far. Cause I know I am. This story is pretty much really long, so pretty much I'm gonna keep on posting every day until the story's finished. And like I said, let's put any comments if you want me to read your favorite creepypasta love story, the one that still hasn't been read on YouTube yet. So yeah, alrighty. Well, here we go. I'm going to be ready for, I think, chapter 31 or 30. Like I said, I'm kind of confused already with the chapters. So, we're on 31 or 30. But if you guys already know, I'm sorry. I have bad memory. So, yeah. Here we go. Okay, like I said, we're on chapter 31 or 30. I care. What? I asked, confused. He reached out a hand for me to take. Come back to us. I'll bring you back, and we can fight these guys off. He tried to persuade me. I looked at his hand and back up at him. Inching away, he scrunched his forehead and gave me a questioning look. I'm not going back, I stated. I seemed taken aback by this. What do you mean, I'm not going back? Ariel, they're not good people, he argued. Yes, they are, I hissed. They kill, he reported. And humans don't? They saved me, Clark, I thought. He widened his eyes at the sound of them saving me. Jeff saved me. They've been protecting me, taking care of me, even when it's against their nature, I explained. He looked down for a second, as if he were thinking, then brought his head back up. But they won't do that for anybody else, will they? He said harshly. You don't know them like I do, I said. That's because they've brainwashed you. Look at yourself, he yelled. I felt Jeff's arms wrap around me defensively, knife in hand. I chose to be this way, I confessed. Clark looked like he had heard the worst news of his life. Why? He questioned. Because they constantly got threatened and attacked for protecting me. That's why, I screamed. The whole time Jeff's arms were around me, I could feel the rage grow inside of him. If it weren't for my presence, Clark would be a goner. He gripped his knife tighter, and his arms around me grew stronger. Clark noticed this and sneered. Don't act like you care about her, he said, directing it at Jeff. Excuse me? I don't care about her. Sorry. Excuse me? I do care about her, more than you know. Jeff growled, loosening his grip around me. I quickly set my hand on his and looked at him. He pulled his gaze away from Clark to me, his expression getting tender from my face. And Clark had caught on. Don't tell me, Ariel, that you've fallen for this monster, Clark said, a bit angry and sad. At the name monster, Jeff shot his head to face Clark. The fire reignited in his eyes, without a moment to say or do anything. Jeff ran at Clark. Clark put up his hand defensively, but it didn't do any good. Jeff swung and stabbed him in the side of the arm. Clark growled in pain as Jeff pulled the knife out of him and kicked in Clark's knees, causing him to collapse. Well, what the hell did you call me? Jeff hissed. What you are, Clark responded. Jeff is not a monster, I said, butting in. And you're becoming one of them. Snap out of it, he screamed at me. That only made Jeff angrier. Jeff started laughing quietly, then it gradually grew louder. I think it's time for you to go to sleep, Jeff said happily. Jeff hunched over Clark, and Clark started getting up. Clearly a fight to break out, and I knew Clark wouldn't make it. Chapter 32, I think. Ignited. Do you really think I'm scared of you? Clark laughed. Jeff got in his face and grinned evilly, and I saw fear grow in Clark's face. He's trying hard to put on a brave front. You should be. You think that since that they gave you a gun, you're unstoppable? Wrong, Jeff said as he punched Clark back onto the ground. Clark looked up and lunged for Jeff's legs. Clark had not avenged and Clark had one advantage, and it's that he learned combat training from the Shadow Hunters. Jeff fell onto the ground, and Clark got on top of him. Jeff headbutted him, and Clark fell off of him. I could see Clark's gaze meet the small glint of his gun from the moon's light. He started crawling to go after it, but Jeff tugged on his legs and dragged him backwards. Jeff, stop, I said calmly, hoping he would listen. Jeff continued, and Clark's hands found a branch along the way. He swung it back without looking, and it smacked Jeff across the face. Jeff let go and stumbled back, touching his face. A bloody scratch was just above his cut smile. It began trickling into the cut. If his eyes could change into any color, it would be red. Clark started getting up, and Jeff ran to him and kicked him in the side. Clark groaned and rolled over. Jeff, I continued. I'm not gonna let him talk to you like that, Jeff replied. Clark eyed Jeff, then me, and he seemed sad. Jeff kicked him in the face, and Clark fell back down. Don't you dare look at her for pity. You don't deserve it after treating her like that, Jeff spat. And you don't deserve her, period, Clark said, swiping the blood off his lip. Jeff's shoulders tensed, and he instantly brought his foot up, only to crash back onto Clark's throat. Clark started gasping for breath and reaching to his neck. What was that? What was that? I don't. Why do you care who she's with? Jeff said, leaning down more. I looked at Clark with worry, and he bit his lip. Clark trailed. You could tell he was afraid to say. Clark grabbed Jeff's ankle and tugged on it as hard as he could. It managed to work, and Jeff fell to the side, hitting his head on a tree. Shit, Jeff muttered, holding his head. Clark got up slowly and glared at Jeff. Something was edging him on. He was fighting so badly to not lose, and that's what kept him going. And Jeff had the same thing, and those two I knew what they were. Anger in me. Clark lurched towards Jeff and grabbed his arm and pulled it behind him. Jeff's face flickered with pain. Clark's wrong move, however, is that it wasn't the arm with the hand that held his knife. Jeff flipped his knife in a backwards position and swung it backwards. Jeff! I screamed on the verge of tears. Clark coughed up blood and let go. Falling to his knees, Jeff slowly turned around to look at Clark with a smudged grin, then to me, and saw my tear that rolled down my cheek. He put his knife into his pocket and ran to me. I'm sorry, he said, sounding sincerely sorry. I looked at Clark as he eyed me in Jeff's arms, blood starting to roll down his chin, and I couldn't just let him die. Oh, sorry. Okay, I'm just read this part again. Blood started rolling down his chin, and I couldn't just let him die. Please come, don't flee, for your own has bloody teeth. Come to the wounds where you hunt for us so harshly. I sang to one of the hunters in their head. I was sure that if Clark was here, others had to be too. I looked at Jeff, and he had a plain look on his face. He was sorry for me, but could care less for Clark's life. I understood that, but I wish I could do more for Clark. Clark was a good friend of mine, and I didn't want to see him die. I need you, Ariel, Clark managed to mutter. Luke's point of view. The lullaby rang in my head, and I instantly watered my eyes. We need to hurry, I instantly said. The rest of the crew eyed me confused. I didn't know if it was a trick or not, but I didn't want to take my chances. One of our own is hurt. We need to go, I said, running out of the hideout. The rest looked at each other, picked up their guns, and followed after me. The echo of our boots on the pavement echoed until it hit the soft dirt. I darted past the trees and tried to find where they could be. You're close, the voice sang once more, and I let my instincts take the lead, and ahead of me I saw the two figures in white, one with the red splatters across their chest. I knew exactly what it was, and I raised my gun to shoot. I didn't have any time to shoot, for they had vanished into the shadows, as if they weren't there. Goodbye, I heard a female voice whisper. I appeared in a small clearing and looked around to see Clark laying on the ground, bleeding out of his stomach. Attend to him now, I reported. Tim instantly rushed to his side and pulled out a medkit out of his backpack. I leaned down next to him and inspected his wounds. They wanted to leave a message loud and clear. Did they? This means war. Sorry. This means war, I said through gritted teeth. Do we have contact with the other departments? Ash asked. I looked up at him and scrunched my forehead. Yes, I replied. I just want to let you guys know that for this I'm not going to say no more of the words of the chapters because I keep forgetting them. So I'm reading the letters. Yeah, like chapter 31 and stuff. But I always keep forgetting them, so I'm just going to keep calling out the chapter names. So if you guys can remember the chapters better by the name, I will do that because it's, yeah. So for now on, I'm just going to call out the chapter names instead of the letters. Alrighty, for this next chapter, The Deal. We ran into the mansion and I sat down, holding my head in my hands. I'm sorry, Jeff apologized, sitting next to me. Don't be. You're just defending me, I assured. Are you sure? He asked. Yes, I'm sure his group will fix him up. I just hope they fixed him up fast enough, I said. He'll be fine. Knowing the group, they'll have backup, Jeff said, realizing what he said. We looked at each other and we both had faces of worry. We both stood up and ran to Slendy's room. Jeff got there first and started knocking on his door. He swung open to see a fully dressed Slendy. What is it? He asked angrily. I wasn't quite sure did we'd caught him sleeping, but from his attitude we interrupted something. The Shadow Hunters, they're going to get reinforcements, Jeff said matter-of-factly. What makes you say this? He questions. We attacked, I began. I attacked one of them, Jeff said, taking the fall. Why? He yelled. It was defense. He shot at Ariel, Jeff said, not giving me time to respond. Is this true? He said, turning to me. I looked down because I was trying to think. I didn't want Clark to be the start of something, but I couldn't lie. Not these people who have been so good to me. Yes, I replied. Suddenly looked away for a second, contemplating on something. We wake the others, he finally let out. We did as we were told and woke everyone up. Though some upset by the sudden annoyance, they trudged down the stairs, Sally rubbing her eyes, Ben yawning, and Jack, Hoodie, and Masky being as slow as they could possibly be. Why the sudden wake-up call? Ben asked. We're here to warn you of the shadow hunters, Sunday replied. We already know about them. This isn't new. Masky said annoyed. We have a hunch they're going to be getting reinforcements. We tagged one of them, Jeff explained. That wasn't a smart move, now was it? Jack said. It was in defense. He shot Ariel, Jeff argued. Everyone besides Sonny straightened up at that. Well, do you know for sure that they're getting more recruits? Miss P asked. No, I replied. Then how the hell do we figure out if they did? Hoodie questioned. Leave it to me, Ben said, walking over to a phone. He picked it up and a buzzing sound came out of it. And like an old radio, it started switching from lines all over the world. Eventually, it stopped on a certain one, and Ben held it up for all of us to hear. Group 274, are you certain you need backup? A gruff male voice asked. Very sure. One of our own was on the verge of death before we got to him. Scout Clark, the other replied. I'm sorry to say this, but we will only send more if civilians are being massacred, the man said. Sure, they wanted us to find him. He was a sign that they can attack whoever they want, the other guard. Are you positive, Lieutenant Luke? The man asked for assurance. Yes, one of them led us to him, sir, Luke confirmed. Everyone looked to Jeff and I. Reinforcements are on their way. Dispatching Group 94 to needed location, the man said, hanging up on Luke. Both ends disconnected and the phone returned to its previous buzzing sound. Ben set it back down and walked back to the group. Ariel, why did you save that scout? Sunday asked. I stayed quiet for a second. He was a friend of mine. I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't want him to die, I replied. We understand. It might have been worse if you actually killed him anyway. I'm surprised no one has yet, Masky said. Jack fiddled with his fingers and turned our attention on him. Jack? Sunday said. And you got mad at me for defending Ariel? Jeff growled. I just took his kidney, Jack defended. Seriously? Ben laughed. Hey, at least I'm not freaking the shot out of one to the point of suicide, Jack argued. We all looked at Ben and he looked away nervously. Never the matter. Tomorrow we will begin training. We need to be prepared. And Ariel. Sunny said, turning to me. Yes, I said. Understand your situation, but do not hold back. You don't have to kill, but fight to protect yourself, Sunny said kindly. I'll fight to protect all of you, I started. Clark's point of view. Are we getting reinforcements? I asked as Luke hung up the phone. Yes, it's hard to say when we'll get them, but it shouldn't be long, Luke replied. Good. I said. I tried getting up from the bed I was on, but it hurt immensely. I sat back down and Ash eyed me. You're a lucky one. You were almost gone when we got to you. Almost bled out, he confessed. He's just lucky one of them was dumb enough to send us to you. No offense, but because of her, she started a fight worse than it already is, Tim said, messing with his gun. She's not stupid, I hissed. They all looked at me confused, since my sudden change in attitude. Dude, she's one of those bastards. Don't defend her, Tim said defensively. I knew Ariel. She didn't send you guys to start a war, I said, glaring at him. They glanced at each other, then to me. You can't let your boy hormones take over. She's one of them, and she's fighting for them, Ash said. I squinted at him and began to say something when I was cut off. Oh, I'm hoping we're not all that bad, a female voice said seductively. We all turned to the shadows to see a woman and a few others walk out, all as demented looking as the next. We all reached for their guns, and she just held up a hand. There will be no need for that, she laughed. Who the hell are you? Luke said angrily. She's one of them. Just look at all of them, Tim growled. He was right. One was gray, bony, and had huge claws. One looked like a demented tails. Sorry. And the other a bloody, evil-looking Pikachu. A tall, block-like figure, and then the woman. But she looked worst of all. Multiple body parts sewn onto her like a rag doll. We want to get rid of them for you. And I can guarantee those reinforcements of yours won't cut it, she said with a grin. You never answered my question. Who are you? Luke asked again, not lowering his gun. She laughed and placed a smirk on her face. I'm Jane, and I want to make a deal, she replied. Next chapter. Keeping a secret. Why should we make a deal with you? Luke questioned. Because, unless you want a portal to our world, you won't get any chance of taking one of them down. What Captain America did over there was luck. Even luckier he survived, she said, pointing at me at the last part. And what is this so-called deal? Tim asked. We take you to our world, help you kill the others, and you become heroes, she said with a grin. What's in it for you? Ash said. You leave us alive, she replied. There's more to it than that. Why would you want to kill your own kind? Luke pushed on. Let's just say I have some bad history with them. Well, 2 of them, but let's not get into details, she said, looking at her nails. But if we let you live, you'll kill civilians. You're murderers, Tim pointed out. Maybe so, but don't you humans do the same? And you're more focused on us instead of all of the hidden serial killers that outnumber us creepypastas. You worry about us since we're different from you. But in a way, we're the same. We're nothing alike. We don't kill as a stress reliever, Ash hissed. I prefer to call it natural selection, she retorted. Whatever, there is no way I'll make the deal with you guys, Luke said angrily. Then how will you get to our world? She asked with a grin. Luke froze. Like I said, unless you can travel to our world, you won't be any closer than you are now, she said. Luke looked angry, but you could tell he couldn't argue. So, Mr. High and Mighty, do we have a deal? She asked, sticking out her hand. Luke eyed her hand, then to the rest of the group behind her. You could definitely tell she was the leader of the group. Take the deal, I managed to say. They all focused on me and she grinned while the rest looked at me, dumbfounded. What are you thinking? We can't Tim argued. What choice do we have? I said with a glare. Luke looked as if he were thinking, then looked to Jane. Hesitantly, he stuck out his hand. Deal, he said. She grew a smile on her face and took his hand, shaking it. Good move. So let's talk about how we're going to handle the situation with your reinforcements, she said, walking further in. The rest followed her like minions, and many in my group watched them cautiously. Jane, I called out to her. She looked in my direction and began walking towards me, slowing down when she got to the bed I was on. What is it? She asked. I looked around to make sure no one else heard. I need you to help me sneak in some friends of mine in your world, I replied. She looked me up and down, an eyebrow raised. And what are you planning? She questioned with a grin. They're willing to help. They just won't allow them since they're not hunters yet. I lied. She kept a smile on her face and crossed her arms, leaning in our little secret. She laughed. Ariel's point of view. I stood next to Jeff, hand in hand, as we looked at the lake. All day we'd been discussing how we would sneak around as hunters, seeing how there would be more of them. I was really worried for everyone's sake. This all happened because of me. Jeff squeezed my hand, and I turned to look at him. What's wrong? He asked. I can't help but feel this is all my fault, I confessed. Don't. No matter what, we all care about you. I care about you. And I will make sure to slit anyone's throat who approaches you with a gun to your chest, or any part of you for that matter, he said as he stood to fully face me. And if they pull a knife? I asked, getting closer. I'll show them how it's done, he said, pressing his body up against mine, a kind of smile growing on his face. We leaned in and started kissing. It felt so good to finally, in a way, have my own Prince Charming. The way he made me feel was something I'd only dreamt about or thought about. He put his hands on my waist and brought me even closer, filling in my gap. There couldn't be between us. My arms went around his neck, and the kiss seemed to intensify. When he pulled away to breathe, he gave me a playful grin and stepped back a bit. What are you planning? I said with a small laugh. Oh, nothing, he replied as he pushed me in the lake. I hit the cold water in my head. In my head, I was laughing. I couldn't see anything in the cool, wet dark, so I just let myself float to the top, only to find a laughing Jeff. You're so gonna get it, I laughed. Oh, am I? He chuckled, crouching down. I nodded and instantly grabbed his arm, and pulling him in, I started laughing and just waited for him to pop up. Finally, Bubbles appeared and his head popped out of the uneven waves. He let a laugh and swam closer to me, leaning in for another kiss. At that moment, I didn't worry about the problems we had. I just let his lips melt away the stress as they were touching mine. But I knew eventually I would have to come back from my fairy tale. Next chapter. So much deception. Yeah. How long do we have to walk? Luke asked Jane. We'd been walking for a mile in these woods, nothing but the wildlife to keep us company, and the awkward silence the new recruits were giving wasn't making it anything better. When the reinforcements came in, it was difficult. The moment they stepped foot in our hideout, they had their guns aimed and at the ready. They didn't give anyone time to speak. They just shot at the group. It took Ash, Luke, and I to get them to stop. Tim could have really cared less if one had been shot, since he wasn't quite fond they were there in the first place. Even worse, that we'd made a deal with them, but he struck with it because he knew that we didn't trust them at all either. But like I said, what choice did we have? We needed We needed to get rid of them, and I needed to kidnap Ariel. She might hate me for it, but I wasn't about to lose her to that abomination. He didn't deserve her, but the question he asked kept replying in my head. I didn't know why I cared so much if she was with someone else. Possibly because of the fact that it was something so corrupt as him. Then again, my conscience was telling me otherwise at times. I just wanted to make sure no one else followed. Last thing we need is someone amateur strolling in our realm. That wouldn't be good now, would it? She stated as she turned to face us. I chuckled inside at that, since she and I had the deal. We stopped in a place I knew well. This was one of my main patrolling areas, very close to where I nearly died. There was even a black taped up X on the trunk of a tree. Here we are, Tails. You know what to do, she said, stepping aside. The Tails doll moved to the spot she once occupied and floated there for a second. The hunters looked to each other confused, then turned our attention to the creature. A black mass started to form and spread throughout the air like oil in water. It started forming a vortex in the middle, and it lightened a bit. Jane turned her body a bit to face us, her usual smirk on her face. Since I'm guessing you men are too scared to go in first, we will. But don't take too long or else it will close, she said. She turned back to the portal and walked through it, followed by every other monster that was with her. I was about to step through when Luke grabbed my arm, and I looked at him. Remember what I said. We'll kill every single one. None of them live, he reminded me before he let go. I knew he sent just talking about Ariel. He was talking about Jane and them as well. I nodded and walked into the black mass, but it was more like pull. It felt as though hands were tugging on me, trying to pull me in different directions. I couldn't see anything either. It was like I had fallen into an abyss with no escape, but eventually I saw light. Not much brighter than the portal, but still good enough to see what was ahead of me. Once I walked out, I looked around to see a dimly lit sky, a forest you would have called a dark forest from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and dark-colored flowers, some dead. Jane and the others were standing there, patiently or impatiently, waiting for us. I heard talking behind me, and I knew the rest had come through. I could have gone my whole life without going through that, Tim said angrily. Jane laughed and turned around. Now you're really gonna have to be on your guard, she chuckled. We grabbed our guns and cautiously followed, looking in all directions. I'm not sure how long we were walking, but I guess better safe than sorry. We came to a halt in the clearing, and Jane walked further in. We'll set up camp here for the night. The rig will be on the lookout all night, Jane said, looking at us, and we all nodded. We each grabbed our backpacks and got out the essentials for the night to come. Luke and Ash set up a big tent while Tim and I made a fire. It was rather pointless though, because we were all tired and weren't planning on staying up. I'm heading in for the night, Tim said, standing up. Night, I said, looking at the warm fire. He walked into the tent that Luke and Ash were already resting in. I sighed and stood up too, ready to go in as well when someone grabbed my shoulder. Come on, we need to get those friends of yours back there before they wake up. Okay. Next chapter and final chapter of part 7. Stick beside each other. I was helping Miss P fix dinner since Lydia did it normally. We had made mussels, rice, and steak. mussels, rice, and steak, and the aroma was intoxicating. What are you guys making? Masky asked, walking in. Steak, rice, and mussels, Miss P replied. Mussels? I have mussels, Masky said, sounding like Muscle Man from regular show. He flexed, and Miss P and I started laughing. Put your baby flap down, Masky, Hoodie laughed as he shoved Masky's arm down. Oh yeah, let's wrestle there, Hulk, Masky challenged. Oh really? Okay, Pussy Willow, you're on, Hoodie said, sitting down, setting his arm in the right position on the table. Masky walked over, pulled up a chair, and took Hoodie's hand, beginning an arm wrestling match. Ben walked in and stopped. Watching Hoodie and Masky, playfulness grew in his eyes, and he walked up to them. He stood in front of the table and looked like he was just watching for fun. Suddenly, he grabbed the table and shook it, causing Masky and Hoodie to mess up. They both looked at him simultaneously and pounced on him. Hoodie wrapped his legs around Ben's neck, and Masky held his arms down. At that moment, Jack came in and saw the commotion that Miss P and I were laughing at. He instantly ran over to the scene and crouched down. 1, 2, 3, he counted while hitting the ground. Hoodie and Masky released Ben from their grasps and jumped up, hands in the air. And the dynamic duo have won round 1, Jack said, taking their wrists. Jeff walked with Slendy, and they both seemed confused by what was going on. Jeff laughed and walked past it all to me, smacking his arms around my waist. What happened? Jeff asked while watching a coughing Ben get up. Well, the dynamic duo over there just won a wrestling match, I laughed. At the sound of their name, Hoodie and Masky high-fived each other. Next time I'll get you two. You want to help me, Jeff? Ben said, fixing himself. Leave me out of this, Jeff replied. I think it would be kind of cute if you did, I confessed. Jeff rolled his eyes and chuckled. Round 1, that's it. Round 1. What, 1 round, that's it. He gave in. Yes, prepare to get your asses kicked. Yes, prepare to get your asses handed to you, Ben said, pointing at Hoodie and Masky. They just shook their heads and fixed their chairs at the table. Dinner's ready, Miss P announced. We grabbed the food and set it on the table while everyone took their seats. Smells good, Sally said with a smile as she skipped in. I walked over to the seat next to Jeff and sat down, leaning over to kiss Jeff on the cheek. He smiled and looked at me. No PDA at the dinner table, please, Jack joked. I stuck out my tongue at him and he just laughed. This smells good, girls. I'm surprised you made dinner this time, Sandy said. Hey, we gotta take care of each other, I stated. Yeah, no matter what, Miss P agreed. Through thick or thin, Masky and Hoodie yelled, raising their empty glasses. We all laughed and began eating. I might not exactly be one of them or related to them, but to me, we're family. We all knew that, and I would protect them in my life. Okay, guys, that's the end of part 7. Hope you liked it so far, because it's been so great so far. And, yeah. So, leave a like and comment. And, yeah. See you in the next chapter. Next part. And be ready for part 7. Part 8. Sorry. Okay, bye-bye.